Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am here with my July wrap up. I'm going to be going over my top 5 books that I read in July, and then also I'll briefly go over some of my stats. I happen to have such a great month of reading in July. I was very productive with it, had some amazing reads. So let's quickly dive into my wrap up for July. Okay guys, so I want to try and make this video quick. I just got home from work, so not at my best here, but I really needed to get this filmed and posted for you. So let's go ahead and dive into my wrap up. Just to briefly, if you aren't aware, if you're new to my channel, I do weekly wrap-ups. I go over every book that I read every week because I tend to talk a long time, and the mid-month and end-of-the-month wrap-ups weren't really working for me. So in the monthly wrap-up, I don't go over all the books I read. I just bring up my top 5, and I'm going to go over my stats. So if you're interested in all the books that I read, you can head over to my playlist. I do have a playlist for my 2024 weekly reads, and you can check out all the books that I read there. If you are new to my channel and you didn't know that, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribing to my channel. All your guys' support means everything to me. I'm really trying to get to that 1K right now. It's been slow going, but I appreciate all of you guys who subscribe, and I would love for you to subscribe, like, or even just comment on my video. I appreciate it. So anyways, let's just quickly dive into my stats. I read 35 books in July, which was really good for me. I read some thicker ones too, so I was pretty proud of myself for sticking with it and reading a little bit more, because June I was slacking with like my birthday month, and like I just wasn't reading as much, but I still did okay. So I read 35 books. That was 14,106 pages. I had 7 arcs. That included a couple ALCs, I believe. I had 14 ebooks, 18 audiobooks. I mean, my work, that's one of the blessings, is I work in a cubicle, an office, and I'm able to listen to audiobooks every day at work. So that's one of the best parts of my job, that I'm able to do that. So luckily I'm able to get a lot of audiobooks in there. And then I also read 2 physical books. The ratings that I had 2 6 stars, 9 5 stars, 2 4.5 stars, 15 4 stars. So I had a lot of 4 stars. 3 3.5 stars, 3 3 stars, and then I had 1 2.5 star. So I might bring up that book because I may mention my worst book too. I don't know if I always want to do that, but I might mention it just to bring it up here. So some of the different types that I read was 10 contemporary, 5 dark romance, 9 mafia. I always read a lot of mafia. 6 historical romances, which is great because I really want to be reading more historical. I read 1 alien, and then 2 reverse harems, 1 fantasy, and then 1 post-apocalyptic. So quite a mix there, but you know, mostly I read dark romance, mafia, contemporary, that kind of stuff. So pretty great month. I'm excited. You know, I did pretty good for what I usually do. So let's go ahead and talk about my top books for the month. Now, the first one I'm going to bring up is technically a reread. It was a 6 star the first time I read it, but I do want to bring it up here because I just had such a great time rereading this. So I reread A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I am trying to finally read this whole series. I only read the first 2 books. I ended with this one, and then I didn't continue. I had been waiting for like the graphic audio for the 3rd one to fully come out in any play, but I don't think the 3rd part ever did. So I finally am like, forget it. Like, I need to either buy those or whatever I'm going to do. But I am reading the whole series and annotating. I did annotate this. I just have to add all like my, I don't know if you can see this. I have to add all my tabs and all that. But I had such a fantastic time with this. This is one of the top book boyfriends, you know, of all time. I love Rhysand. I mean, this is really Rhysand's book. And just reading it again and actually physically reading it the first time, I just listened to it on audiobook. And this time, like, actually annotating, I felt like I was so much more invested. I love, you know, reading about Rhysand's inner circle. You know, I mean, I don't think I really have to go too into what this is about because everybody's read ACOTAR, but I mean, at least I think everybody has, not everybody, but you know, at the end of the last one, Feyre really went through a lot under the mountain, and she has severe PTSD and trauma from what she had to do. I don't want to bring that up in case you haven't read the first one, but she's really suffering. She is with Tamlin, and, you know, she thinks that's her true love or whatever, but she did have this deal with Rhysand where he would get her like a week, you know, a month or whatever. And in this, it's like she's going through trauma up at night, like throwing up, having nightmares. And, like, Tamlin is, like, doesn't even wake up, doesn't even, like, concerned about her, doesn't even pay attention to all this trauma she's going through. And he's, like, all about protecting her and keeping her locked up and all this stuff. And she's just wasting away. And Rhysand finally, like, comes to her during her wedding because she's going to get married to Tamlin. And he basically takes in for his deal. And he only did that because he could sense her struggle and how much she's suffering. They have this bond. And you think it's through just this bond that he, like, you know, created with their deal. But it's so much more than that, obviously. And so you kind of have this thing where she's going to Rhysand's and then coming back home. And then something bad happens to her where she's just devastated when Tamlin, like, locks her in the house because he doesn't want her in danger or this or that. There's so many red flags with Tamlin, and so Rhysand gets her and takes her to the night court, and then she gets to see what the night court really is, gets to meet his friends, his inner circle, and she starts to get trained by Rhysand because of what happened in the last one. She has powers and learning to master those powers. So I don't want to go into anything because it's the second book in case you happen to be somebody who hasn't read this, but this book is freaking fantastic. It is still a 6-star read. Rhysand, I just fell in love with him all over again, even more than I did the first time. I just love it. I love Feyre's journey. I love how much she grows and evolves as a character. And I just love this book so much. So it is still a 6-star. It's, I mean, right now, obviously, I've only read the first 2. It's my favorite. I love Rhysand so much. So in August, I'm planning on reading A Court of Wings and Ruins, so I'm finally going to read that one and annotate that one. So, honestly, it's just such a good time with this. I really took my time since I was annotating and just did a little bit every day, and I loved it so much. It's amazing. So Rhysand is worth the hype. He is top book boyfriend. He's sexy. He's everything. And I listened to this with graphic audio while I was physically reading and annotating, and it's just such a great experience. So if you haven't listened to the graphic audio of this, I highly recommend it. It's a full cast of characters, you know, it says like a movie in your mind. It really is like that. It's so well done. So highly recommend the graphic audio for this. Okay, so that one, you know, I was worried about bringing that up since it was a reread, but I just loved it so much again this time that I really did need to put it in my top 5. But my favorite new book, basically, of the month was my other 6-star, and that was Forever Your Rogue by Erin Langston. This is my first book by this author. This is a current, like, newer historical romance type of author that I think is just doing it right. I have not read newer historical romances like this, like where it really like just moved me. It was so like not like super angsty, but that angst of like longing, like it was so romantic. It really sucked me in. I didn't want it to end. I loved the characters. I freaking fell in love with this book, and so I am a huge fan, and I can't wait to read more from Erin Langston. So in this book, we have Nate, Travers, and Cora. And Cora is in a tough spot. She knew Nate when they were like kind of younger. They kind of had a flirtation going on and they're kind of friends. But she ended up getting married, and her husband was not a good man. But she had 2 wonderful kids. And so she has these wonderful children that she loves. Her husband ended up dying, but within this time, like she does not have power as a wife. He gave the power of like his children over to his sister and her husband. And so they're basically threatening taking these kids away from her, and they're making these really crazy demands, and she's just so stressed out. So she has to come up with this plan, because they thought she needed to have a husband and have a man for the children, to kind of have a fake engagement, tell her and her brother, who happens to be a lawyer, whatever they're called at that time, they're going to look into the laws and try to appeal this and try to go through the courts to try and get this figured out. So she offers Nate Travers to do this like fake engagement. Now, he is a rogue, he is a rake, he is a playboy, and he really doesn't care about responsibilities. His older brother was a lot older than him and had to take care of him and his like sister. I love his brother in this book, because his brother is very serious and wants him to start taking responsibility, because he will be the heir too. And so he has a lot of gambling debts, and he's gotten himself in a really bad position. So she's like basically offering to do this, and then that way she can take care of his debts. And he has to come stay out at their kind of like the house in the country, because her husband's sister and her husband are coming to stay out there for like over a month. And she's very stressed out about it. She feels like they're just trying to catch her doing something wrong. And he basically comes out there, and he really like falls for her and her children. And it is like one of the best reformed rakes I've ever read. They are mutually pining for each other, and it is just so romantic. There are so many amazing scenes, so many romantic scenes, like a piano scene, a library hot sex, like not fully sex, but a whole library scene. There are just so many things. The scenes with him and her children, the way he like goes to bat for them and is just so invested. And it's just like those slight touches of the hand, these longing looks. Like, it was so freaking romantic. There's like cool, like amazing letters in here. I just swooned so hard for Nate Travers. So he's kind of up there with my reformed rakes list of like Sebastian St. Vincent. He's another one. Like, he was phenomenal. I freaking loved this book. I gave it 6 stars. I think it was like 3.5 chilies. So pretty good spice for historical romance. I was blown away. So if you have not read this, please read it. I'm trying to remember. I think it might be available on Kindle Unlimited. I'm actually planning to read the novella that is like kind of like a prequel about his brother, because his relationship with his brother is kind of complicated, but it's so moving. I loved this. I cried multiple times. It was so fantastic. Okay, the other one that I had was an arc actually that I read, and it was Broken by Serena Akeroyd. This is a taboo, forbidden priest romance, but I think it's like the best priest romance, one of the best priest romances I've ever read. I did not like Priest by Sierra Simone. I thought it was horrible. I think I gave it like 2 stars, and I just loved this one. It was so unique. I've never read, and like Serena Akeroyd, I've read a lot of her books because I'm slowly reading through her backlist, and I've never read one like this. Like, it was a totally different writing style. The pacing, everything was just really well done. I really enjoyed it. I think she did like a rewrite of this. I think it was released as like a different book before, but I think she's like done some different things to it. I didn't read that book, so I don't know. But I absolutely loved this. This is Savio and Andrea. And Savio is a very tortured, broken priest. He was taken captive by this horrible group and tortured for like years. He had to watch like very horrible acts and kind of take their confessions, even though he like fought taking their confessions because he didn't want to absolve them of like their sins. So he went through a lot. And he's been, now that he was like freed, he bounced between different congregations. He couldn't really find his place. He's kind of just going through the motions as a priest. He's not fully invested anymore. But he feels like, you know, he wants to do God's work. And so it's just this constant struggle. Then we have Andrea, and she is a very interesting heroine. I've never read anybody like her. She has been pretty much kind of stalking him from afar, obsessed with him from afar since she was like 14. She saw news about him when he was captured, and she just felt this connection to him, and she would write him letters throughout her life. She is a author, and she kind of feels like she can see things that other people can't. So she's this empath kind of, I feel like, where she can see like a victim or somebody that's being victimized, and so she'll befriend them and then do whatever she can to help save them from that situation and help them. So I really loved that part of her character, and she really feels like she needs to help Savio and that she's his soulmate. So he's in Rome, and he is, you know, a priest in Rome, and she shows up and turns his whole world upside down. The thing is also, Savio is taking confessions, and when he hears horrible crimes that these people are, you know, committing, he has taken things into his own hands and punished them by killing them. But then he also punishes himself. There's a lot of self-harm in this, because he does like that whipping of the back and everything. So she kind of shows up and blows into his life and kind of just puts a mirror to him and is like, you're not a priest anymore. Like, you're just going through the motions. This is not what you should be doing. And then she basically helps him. There's like a lot of caretaking. And they're like soulmate kind of thing. So I really loved this. I gave it 5 stars. It was fantastic. I thought it was very unique, and I really loved it. The other one that I had was a new to me author, and that is Mad Love by Willow Astor. I absolutely loved this. I got this ALC, and the audiobook was fantastic, and it was just this perfect single dad, you know, football star, small town type of romance, and I freaking loved it. I can't wait to continue with this series. In this one, we have Weston and Sadie, and Weston is the NFL quarterback. I think he's a quarterback. Yes, he's a quarterback. And he finds out randomly that he has a 2-month-old son because he didn't know, but he had a one-night stand with a woman, and she got pregnant, and she never told him that he had a son. And she gets in an accident, and the son was with her, but she didn't survive, and his son is at the hospital. So they're calling him in because his name was on the birth certificate. And so he shows up, and there's this other woman there, Sadie, and she was actually the one-night stand's sister. She has been helping raise the baby with her sister and taking care of things, and she kind of assumed that he knew and didn't care and didn't want anything to do with his son. So they kind of have a little bit of a tough start, but he is just so wonderful. Weston is like book boyfriend material. He basically like offers her, hey, I'm new to this. I'm going to be a new dad. And I know you want this relationship with your nephew. So why don't you come stay with me for like a transitionary period of like a month or something while we get used to this. And I'll guarantee like you're always going to be a part of his life. Because she was very scared that like he's a quarterback, he's in the NFL, he has money, he's going to be able to like kind of just have full custody, and she won't see the kid anymore. But that's not what happens. And so she quickly learns she was wrong about him, and they have this forced proximity, living in the same house and taking care of his son. And it was just so precious because he goes in all in immediately. He's so invested in being a good father. And he's like, they support each other and they work together to like raise this child together. And so of course, and then they start to fall for each other. And there's a little bit of issue because she is literally like the sister of the person he had a one-night stand with. And how does that look? But I just love this so much. I gave it 5 stars. It was so sweet. It was a fantastic audiobook. Okay, and then I finally read Dom by S.J. Tilley. I had actually had to skip Dom because I had an arc for Hans. And so I had heard about how Dom was some people's favorite. And it is tied for favorite with Hans for me because they're very different, but I loved them so much. I liked the first two. They didn't blow me away, but Dom was freaking fantastic. It's the third book in the Alliance series. This is a Mafia series by S.J. Tilley, and this one was just great. It was between Dom and I think it's Val, and they kind of meet at the airport. She thinks it's a chance meeting, but he has set this up because her half-brother is in the Alliance and he wants to get a foot in the Alliance and get their help, and kind of forces their hand by getting involved with their half-sister. So they meet at the airport. They totally hit it off. They have like kind of a hookup there, switch numbers, and they're texting and communicating for a while. Then she goes to Vegas and she's texting him and he's like, oh, I happen to be in Vegas right now. He's not in Vegas, but he gets on his private jet, flies to Vegas, and he kind of drugs her and marries her, and then, set that up. So when she finds out that it was all to be like part of the Alliance, she's pretty devastated because she was really falling for him, and he was falling for her too, but he had already set this plan in motion. So that's kind of a hurdle they have to get over. But Dom is just so alpha. He's so possessive. He's diehard on his woman. There's some birth control tampering in here, which I always love in my romance. I don't know. It's weird, but I do love it. So I had a great time with this. Val was such an interesting character. She had been through so much and like really not loved, not accepted by anybody. And so I just loved Dom like fully being there for her and her finding like this found family with his family. So absolutely loved it. 5 stars. Had a great time. Listened to that on audiobook and it was an amazing one. So okay, the last one that I want to bring up is actually Outlander. I'm doing that read along with Jen from the Book Refuge, and this was Drums of Autumn. Now, I actually, I think they like threw it over my gate, so I was really pissed off about my mailman right now. But Drums of Autumn is actually my first time reading this one. I had read the first 3, and so this was a first time for me reading Drums of Autumn, and it is a thick book. It's thick. It's a long book, so it took me a while. It's like, I think 900 and something pages, but it's like really tiny writing. So this took me a little bit to read. But honestly, like I was listening to an audiobook and then also doing my ebook because I'm planning on annotating this. So I loved this. This is Jamie and Claire in America, and it's their journey to find like their place in this new land. You get to deal with Native Americans, and I love seeing like the America culture back then. And it's also the story of Brianna, and sorry, my cat was just jumping on stuff. It's also the story of Brianna and Roger, which I really appreciated because kind of in this show, I don't really love the casting of Brianna and Roger, and they have like no chemistry. So it was great to see their romance in this and see Brianna's journey. She does go back in time because she thinks her parents might die. And I think in like this fire and everything because she found a news article. So she goes back in time and like Roger follows her. And so the reason that this book is just so amazing to me was having Bree being able to, and having Jamie come together, having Jamie being able to see his daughter that he never thought he would ever be able to see her was just so beautiful. There's so many amazing moments in this. We have a new villain who's really horrible, does some awful things. So there are trigger warnings for sexual assault that is in this. So just be aware. I mean, you got to kind of be prepared for that with Outlander. It kind of happens in a lot of the books. But I thought this villain was very interesting. He was such a manipulative, like showed different sides. He was like kind of fucked over each character at different points in this book. But I just absolutely loved it. I mean, obviously I can't go into, like, it's thick. There's so much to go over in it. You could go head over to Jen's channel. We did discuss it on the live show. I'll try to remember to link that down below if you want to check that out. I think we like talked for 2 hours about this book, so it's a lot more details than I'm giving here, but I just loved it. I loved seeing Jamie with his daughter, and you know, I just love Fraser's Ridge and them living day to day. It's more of a day to day, them being together and kind of like on the frontier, kind of that kind of feeling. So I just loved it. So gave it 5 stars, had a really great time with that one. Okay, and I will briefly talk about the worst book that I read, which was Hush Hush. I'm not going to go into too deep on it, but it's an escort romance, and I hated the heroine. I thought she was one of the most selfish heroines I've ever read, and I didn't like any of the characters. I mean, she is like a cheater. She lies about being an escort to like her boyfriend that she meets and was like, okay, I'll have a boyfriend to have a boyfriend. But he literally tells her at the get-go, like, my ex-fiance cheated on me with, like, my best friend. So that's absolutely, like, a line for me. You can't cheat on me. You can't, like, be disrespectful and not be open and communicating and lying to me. And so, like, that's super important to him. And does she tell him right there that she's an escort? No, she doesn't. She's like, oh, I'm not going to tell him. Maybe later. That is so fucked up. And she continues to lie to him for so long. And then she ends up falling for one of her, like, guys. And ends up being her best friend's dad. And her best friend literally talks to her about her dad's struggles with, like, her mom. And how her mom wants to go to therapy. And she literally listens to it knowing she's, like, with the dad. And, like, doesn't tell her friend. And it's just so fucked up. So there's a lot of stuff in this book that like really fucking pissed me off. But basically this heroine never had like a good arc. Like she was just constantly about herself. Even the older guy that she was with, her friend's dad, he tells her he wants her to stop seeing her boyfriend while they're together. He's going to pay her like millions of dollars to just be her exclusive man. And she doesn't quit the escort thing like he asks her. And she doesn't stop being that guy's girlfriend or whatever. She stays with her boyfriend, even though he told her not to, and then continues lying to the boyfriend. So she's a liar, a cheater, and a selfish bitch. So I hated that book. I'm not going to go off about it anymore, but I was very frustrated. That's the one I gave 2.5 stars to. So anyways, that's my wrap up for July. Thank you so much for watching this. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment. Let me know what your favorite book of the month was, or if you've read any of these and also loved them. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you for supporting me, and I will see you guys on the next one.